All right, Jeff, we have a lot to get into, including this dust-up at the White House with the press, but look at what we got here. This didn't look like it was going to happen all day long, and we had a game. And why is that a significant development? Because it looked like a 10-session-in-a-row winning streak for the Dow, most of them one record after another. It looked like it was going to stop right there. And then in the last seconds, I don't know what Shep did, but we got up there. Maybe put a buy order in a commercial break, who knows. But the Dow now up 11 straight sessions. That is good enough for a record. And there you could see, we poured a lot of money into this particular graphic because I think this tells the story. Green hour, green hour, green hour, green hour, green hour. But you get the idea. Holy cow, isn't that a big deal? Now, then everyone in the control room right now, well, that jerk. No. All right. Well, sorry. I just love that. At the last second, I'm telling my producer, look at the Dow. And she's like throwing things at me. All right. Now we do want to go to another development, a little soap opera development here. Maybe all the news that's fit to tick off in case you didn't hear. And it's been sort of circling around. CNN, Politico, the New York Times not wanted out of Gaggle, and that has caused quite a gaggle to John Roberts from the White House on the fallout from, I guess, a wave of the wand. What happened here?
Just spoke to the president of the White House Correspondents Association, by the way, Neil, and WACA has filed an official complaint with the White House about what happened this afternoon. The 5-network pool, as it's known, of which Fox News is a member, is also filing a complaint about what happened. Fox News supports that. So here's what did happen. The president gave a speech at CPAC today. So Sean Spicer did not have a briefing. Instead, he had what's called an off-camera gaggle in his office. Invited to come up to the office was the pool, and this is a collection of 13 people from various news organizations who go to pool events. You see them at the Oval Office a lot. They follow the president around in the motorcade, that sort of thing. And then it's their job to disseminate the information to the rest of the White House press corps. But in addition to the pool being invited to this gaggle, several other news organizations, including Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS, and others, were invited to come up and ask questions of Sean Spicer. A couple of notable news organizations like the New York Times and CNN were not invited, and I'm told that the Associated Press also boycotted this gaggle because of the fact that some news organizations weren't invited. When questioned about it, Sean Spicer said that he believes this White House has done more than its fair share of giving access to people, giving access to their people, to news organizations to answer questions, and that there are 3,000 press who were credentialed to cover the White House, and just not everyone could be invited. You might have noticed that there were a couple of unfavorable stories about the White House that were published in a couple of those organizations today, Neil. The White House would not say that that had anything to do with it. They're sticking with their story that they invited the pool and some others didn't get invited. Neil?
You know, John, the White House had to know the fallout would be what it was. Agreed or disagreed with targeting the media and the media predictable reaction, right?
I mean, clearly they did, but don't forget the president gets a lot of mileage with his supporters out of
Indeed.
his war with the media. You know, I was asked on Tuesday after the gaggle when I was on Shep's show, like what he did with the Dow, by the way, when I was on Shep's show, did Sean Spicer seem to walk back the president's criticism of the media a little bit when he said that he has respect for all news organizations? I told Shep back then, hey, it's early in the week. It's only Tuesday. There's plenty of time for the president to go after the press. And at his CPAC address today, you saw that he did. I mean,
Absolutely.
The first 15 minutes of his address was all about excoriating the press. So this is something that he gets a lot of mileage out of. It's happened before. Fox News was excluded during the Obama administration on a couple of items. I remember I was covering the Bush administration when there was an unfavorable story. Sometimes people would lose access for a few days. Different White Houses, different press secretaries have different ways of approaching news they don't like, and this may be the way that they approached it today.
Yeah, or they made a step too far. John, thank you very much, my friend. Maybe you were the guy making that last-minute buy order. John Roberts outside the White House. Thank you. Thanks. All right, to the Media Research Center's Rich Noyes on this. Rich, what do you think of what happened here today?
Well, I think it depends on your definition. If this was a gaggle, you know, cutting out some of the reporters who would properly be there, seems to be going a bridge too far. If it's a pool where you're supposed to just have a small representative group who then spreads the news to everybody and then add a few more to that, well, you know, no one's being left out. You're just enhancing the pool.
Well, I'm told it was a gaggle,
I think
so it was the prior, right, not the latter.
Right. So that, the terms kind of matter. It's a sort of a technical thing. I think in general, I think there's no problem criticizing the press, particularly when they do bad stories. CNN just did a distorted report the other night about the FBI and Reince Priebus talking to each other. It sounds like the White House has a reason to be mad at CNN. This was all about a New York Times story that was distorted, that they were talking about, which they have a reason to be mad about. But once you start cutting people out of access, that's a weapon that has been used by the Obama administration on conservative outlets, non-liberal outlets. There's going to be a president after this one and a president after that one. And if they start picking and choosing the reporters who cover them, then you end up with a real problem. I think the liberal media fraternity will probably work out better in the long run than people trying to be disruptors in the profession.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Rich. There's a long history of this. Presidents in both parties who don't like the way they're covered, even those who have historically been covered pretty well. John Kennedy was famous for picking apart stories and publications whose coverage he didn't like, even though he was, as I said, pretty favorably presented to the American people. Abraham Lincoln famously went after newspapers and ostracized some of them in his own coverage. So I understand that. But do you draw more attention to it, making it so public? And is the better part of valor to quietly, in this case, diss or ignore them? You know what I mean? Like with the President Obama, to your earlier point, he would single out Fox or whatever, and it wouldn't oftentimes be so blatant that you'd feed the reaction you got, but it was well known without it being shouted. What do you think?
Right. Well, I think President Trump has a philosophy, you saw it in the campaign, where he thinks access to him, access to his people is the fuel that helps the media make money. He didn't want to go to the debates just to become something that could then have advertising sold and the media make money off of his performance, where he wasn't being paid, the charities wouldn't get paid. So he was trying to bargain that and barter that. I think this is an extension of that, where if they're not going to be fair, if they're not going to be honest, we don't need to give them access. That's the wrong approach when you're sort of in a public institution like the White House. But criticize them. If you have a problem with their stories, point them out, showcase it, make sure everybody understands why that was sloppy journalism, and let the chips fall where they may after you air the dirty laundry.
Bingo, because this looks childish, to me at least. Rich Noyce, thank you very, very much. By the way, it would look childish, Democrat or Republican, doing it. You don't like the press, and you don't pick and choose who you like. You can just ignore the questions. All right, Rich, thank you. I want to go to Charles Payne right now because we told you about this 11th straight winning session here. But it's this kind of stuff that makes me wonder, isn't this what the administration should be crowing about? Isn't this what the administration should be focusing on? These steady gains in market wealth, almost $3 trillion now since he was elected. And don't get distracted in this superficial nonsense.
I tell you what, I've heard President Trump talk about this market and how it's correlated to his victory. We heard his Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin with Maria Bartiromo saying the stock market is the perfect scoreboard, not only for what Trump has already done for America, but for what Wall Street thinks he's going to do, because it's a forward-looking mechanism. It's 6 to 12 months out. What it's saying is that we've had this sort of optimism that is absolutely amazing. I personally would love to see the president continue to harp on these sort of things. A smaller company, but it's 80 years old, called Mastech, out of Coral Gables, Florida, reported earnings this morning, Neil. It's an infrastructure company, the best quarter ever. And they said 2017 was going to be phenomenal. This is the news that I want Americans to hear, because it hits all of us, and it adds to the enthusiasm for all of us.
And what I wanted, you and I have chatted about this on Fox Business, but this notion that, Mr. President, you're right to say the media does have it out against you. The disproportionate negative stories and positive ones. Now, you and I have also said that all these networks have 24 hours to get everything out, the negative and the positive. And he is right to say that some of the positive stuff he does, like this market wealth, like this surge in business activity and hiring, doesn't get the attention he thinks it should. He would not be the first president to argue that. Why not just say that at the outset, guys, in case you didn't see it today, the market hit another record, or it's hitting another record, or a lot of people got jobs today. I want you to know that, because these guys aren't going to report that in a tightly kind of scripted, kidding way, and then move on. Well, but he seems obsessed and sidetracked by this stuff, and it gets in the way of the bigger, better story.
It gets under his skin, because when he announced that he was running for president, they did treat Donald Trump, the candidate, like a clown. I mean, Huffington Post reported him in the entertainment section.
Absolutely.
So
By the
he
way,
was
as
upset.
they fed off the ratings surge that he helped provide. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I understand that he's upset. I understand he's a counterpuncher like most New Yorkers. But to your point, I think he's got so much great news. It would hurt the mainstream media more to point out all of the amazing things that have happened than to get involved and help make some of them martyrs in their own world.
That's very well put. I will take that line, steal it, stamp my name to it. It will now be my line. All right, Charles Payne, great seeing you, my friend. All right, what does Newt Gingrich think of all of this? He had his, run-ins with the media and all. How do you balance out what you're seeing happening on Wall Street and the cockamamie way sometimes it is covered by the press on Main Street? After this.